The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show. Yeah, that happens. All right, there we go. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this, what is it, April 16th of this Thursday. It's I'm in Warsaw, Poland. It is 9:30 p.m. over here, so thought I'd sneak in a show quickly before bedtime. I just did a talk at the Warsaw, what is it, School of Economics. And that was good. It was good. And I had a few people up there. We've got one who was there, who regular viewer of the show. Another guy ran out after me after the talk and said, "Oh, I wanted to tell you before you left." He said, "I last saw you speak here in Warsaw in 2017, and you inspired me to become active and fight for freedom. And you had a huge impact on my life. Thank you." And he was all shaky and emotional. He's getting a master's in economics. He's hoping to get a PhD in economics. So yeah, having an impact on people's lives. That is good. I guess you guys are waiting for me in Porto. I'll be there tomorrow. I've got a direct flight from Warsaw to Porto. Hopefully that'll go smoothly tomorrow. Let's see what else. Since we last spoke, I've been to Montenegro. Montenegro has this university, private university, which is where in some of the courses they teach Ayn Rand. It's generally what's called a classical liberal university. It's very pro-free markets. And they have 4,000 students, very successful, probably the best university in Montenegro. Montenegro is a very small place, but still, it's great. The guy who invited me used to be a student at the university. Now he's a professor at the university. He's an assistant professor at the university, and he's invited me, and he's going to be in Porto. So look out for him. Those of you in Porto, he will be there. He's very interested in objectivism, very interested. He's read Ayn Rand. I met the rector of the university, who's really the owner and the president of the university. He uses Ayn Rand in his lectures. He's spoken about Ayn Rand, written about Ayn Rand. So yeah, having an impact in Montenegro. Last night I spoke in Amsterdam, not Amsterdam, Utrecht. Utrecht. Can you say Utrecht? The ch. You got to get the ch right. It's an Israeli ch, so I can do it. I spoke in Utrecht, and that was really good. I had about 50 people, and a mixture, some objectivists, libertarians, some people interested. It was good. I talked about kind of the state of the world and left and right, and collectivism versus individualism. I spoke about the same topic basically today in Poland. Yeah, really good. So Jennifer says she can't say Utrecht. My guess is most Americans can't say Utrecht. People can make fun of my accent in English. They complain about my Oz. But in Polish, I'm really good. Wrocław. Anyway, so be it. Anything else I want to tell you? Yeah, I mean, one of the things I like about the EU. There's a show we could have. I love flying from country to country. Clearly a different country every time. No passport control. You do the passport control once when you enter the EU, and then you fly around from country to country. No passport control, no limitations, like flying from state to state in the United States. So we take it for granted. But I remember the days in Europe where you had to get, all right, new passport control, start over again. Everything starts from scratch. Yeah. So one of the things I really like about the EU, you can drive across borders, no limitation, just like states. Indeed, I'm a big advocate for the United States of Europe. Europeans don't like it when they say that, but United States of Europe, it's time to abandon this idea of all these separate little states and all these separate little, I mean, Montenegro, 500,000 people, 600,000 maybe. What's the point? Just make it a state in a federated Europe. All right, let's see. So updates on kind of what's going on. As you know, we talked about the ceasefire between the United States and Iran. I still don't quite understand what the United States gets out of this ceasefire. I guess the Israelis and the Gulf states get a little piece from missile attacks, from ballistic missiles and drones. But the funny thing is that the Gulf states and Israel were the ones advocating for keep going. They didn't mind it as long as ultimate victory, which is primarily going to be regime change, was attained. So again, I'm not sure what the United States gets out of a ceasefire. I will say this: instead of actually opening up the Straits of Hormuz and escorting ships out of there, and the United States instead has decided to blockade Iranian shipping. So they're not allowing ships into Iran, they're not allowing ships out of Iran. So far, I think it's day 4, day 3, or day 4, and they've been very successful in stopping all shipping in and out of Iran. We'll get to that in a minute, but here's a question for you. I wonder if you have an idea. Why wasn't this done on day 1 of the war? Why was it that as we were bombing the Iranians and destroying their military and killing their leadership, we allowed them to continue to export oil to the rest of the world and to bring in income and to make money and take away any incentive for the Chinese who get most of the Iranian oil to actually put pressure on Iran to surrender and to stop this? It's not completely coherent what the strategy is. I mean, if you can blockade Iranian shipping, why not do it day 1? So a little bewildering. I don't quite understand that. Again, maybe a lack of thinking, a lack of strategy, they were kind of shocked by this closure of the Straits of Hormuz. Well, why not say to the Iranians, if you're going to close the Straits of Hormuz, your shipping is finished. No ship is going to pass to an Iranian port, and no ship is going to exit an Iranian port. And those ships that you take a toll for, we're not going to let them through either. So you better stop taking a toll. You would have thought, again, strategy, that would have been one of the first things to be done. But no. Anyway, the blockade's a good idea. Again, should have been done right at the beginning of the war, together with the strategy on how to open the Straits of Hormuz. The Straits of Hormuz is still not completely open. More ships are traversing it. The United States has kind of figured out a safe route where the Iranians have not mined it. Iran, because of the ceasefire, is not attacking these ships. So more ships are exiting the Straits of Hormuz, so more Saudi oil, Iraqi oil. I think UAE and Qatar is exiting the Straits of Hormuz for now. Again, hard to tell how long this will continue. Trump continues to want a deal with the Iranians. Again, the negotiations fell apart last week. Why didn't the bombing restart? Trump clearly wants a deal, and it continues to say that the Iranians have agreed to no nuclear weapons. They've agreed to return all the processed uranium back. They've agreed to hand it over to the United States. Supposedly, they've agreed to all these things. I'm skeptical, allowing you to be skeptical about whether they've really agreed to these things or not. But what he wants is a big, beautiful bill, a big, beautiful deal, right? peace. I mean, he gets that the war is not popular because to a large extent he hasn't made the case for the war, and that he needs to resolve it in some way. And his inclination is, look, if you look at Gaza, if you look at Lebanon, Hezbollah, and you look at Iran, Trump has given Israel a free hand and then stopped. Like the one thing Trump won't let Israel do and won't let himself do is actually finish the job. We'll get to Lebanon in a minute. But in every case, a ceasefire is called, stop. I mean, there was a real opportunity to weed out Hamas and destroy it and disarm it and finish the job. No, Trump stopped. Ceasefire. There's a real chance now in Lebanon to get rid of Hezbollah. As of a few hours ago, Trump said, stop, ceasefire. There was a real chance of getting regime change in Iran, and Israel and the United States were making real progress towards that, and Trump said, no, stop, ceasefire, negotiate. Again, I've said this over and over again. Ayn Rand said this originally, of course, I'm not original in this. There is nothing to be gained by the good negotiating with the evil. The good has nothing to gain from evil. Evil has everything to gain from the good. Indeed, its very survival depends on the good. I mean, imagine Iran without oil. Why can Iran sell oil and make money? Because there are unbelievably numbers of productive people out there, productive companies out there that are trying to live lives and trying to produce and trying to create, needing oil. They live because there's people out there doing the things necessary for survival, doing good in, for human life. Trump wants a deal. In the meantime, the Iranians are using the ceasefire, as you would expect, to improve their situation. For example, they're digging up in the satellite images that are showing this. And Trump actually acknowledged it today in talking to reporters. The Iranians are using the time to dig out the tunnels that are being blocked by the bombing, so that they can get to their launches and to their missiles. So if the ceasefire is over, if the ceasefire is over, they will immediately have access to their launches, to shoot ballistic missiles at the Gulf states and at Israel. So they're not sitting on their hands. They're actively engaged in preparing for the end of the ceasefire, in preparing for resuming their attacks. It's still not clear who Trump is talking to exactly. He's talking to the Speaker of the Parliament in Iran, but it's not clear that he's the one who has the power. It's not clear who exactly does have the power. There are conflicting reports. There's obviously grave disagreements within the Iranian regime about what should be done. There are, relatively speaking, moderates who would like to cut a deal. There's still religious fanatics, so I'm not sure if a deal... I mean, let's put it this way. There are people in Iran who believe, let's cut a deal, we'll cheat on it anyway. And then others says, no, we've got pride. We're not going to cut a deal. We'll go down with the ship. We'd rather commit suicide. So the real difference is not about the end game. The real difference between the moderates and the radicals is whether they're willing to die now for the cause, or whether they would rather cheat on a deal and delay their meetings with the virgins in the afterlife. What else can I say about? Oh yeah, the other point I think that's important to make is while this ceasefire is happening, the Iranians are digging their missiles out. The United States is bolstering its troops in the area, so flights flying in. I think equipment, probably a lot of ground-to-air missiles. They were being depleted, and they're probably adding to the supplies. They're bringing more ammunition. They're also bringing more troops. We talked about this last time. More airborne, 82nd Airborne. More of those troops are coming in. Also, there is an aircraft carrier group heading towards the Arabian Sea, heading towards the conflict zone. It is interesting. They left from the East Coast. Was it now a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago? I thought, and everybody expected them to go through the Mediterranean and down the Suez Canal. and join up with the other aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea. But no, they have not entered the Mediterranean. They're actually going around the Cape of Good Hope. They're going southern Africa, which extends their trip by 3 days. But on the other hand, is probably safer. Maybe they're worried about being attacked in the Suez Canal. Maybe they're worried about having to confront the Houthis. I don't know. It's hard to understand exactly why they're doing this, but it could just be 3 days is worth it not to, Suez Canal, you're stuck in a very narrow place. If it's an aircraft carrier, there's almost no room for maneuvering. Maybe there's some indications that there's some suicide bombers or terrorists or I don't know, some threat to them when they do that. But they are going around the Cape of Good Hope. They will be joining up with the other aircraft carrier group. So the U.S. military is bolstering its forces in the Middle East for the potential that these negotiations will not be successful. But Trump is really pushing for the negotiations, and really the big step that he took today in terms of moving towards that negotiation. The Iranians were linking their willingness to negotiate, but also their willingness to compromise with a deal in Lebanon, with a ceasefire in Lebanon, and Israel refused. And originally the United States said, no way, there's no relationship with what's going on in Iran and what's going on in Lebanon. Israel has a right to defend itself. Anyway, today, Trump called the president of Lebanon and kind of unilaterally declared after that call that there was going to be a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. I think that came as a complete surprise to the Israelis. But, Netanyahu fell into line, as he usually does when Trump asks him to do something. Netanyahu has announced that as a favor to Trump, they will go into a 10-day ceasefire. In addition, Trump has said that he's inviting the president of Lebanon and Netanyahu to the White House to negotiate a peace deal. Now, a couple of things to note. One, the president of Lebanon can actually declare a ceasefire. Israel's not fighting Lebanon. Israel's fighting Hezbollah. The president of Lebanon does not speak for Hezbollah. So exactly what happens now when Hezbollah doesn't play, but now Hezbollah would like a ceasefire. They're losing desperately, and it's really bad for Hezbollah what's going on in Lebanon. So they're on their back heel. So they would like a rest, just like Iran. They wouldn't mind a rest to regroup and figure out what they do next. But the president of Lebanon doesn't speak for Hezbollah, so I'm not sure he can declare a ceasefire. Israel could stop shooting, and it says it will unless it's shot at, and then its soldiers will defend themselves. Israel has achieved some major successes in South Lebanon. We've talked about their successes in destroying and killing many senior Hezbollah operatives on that one day when the ceasefire with Iran was announced, and they killed, I think 250 Hezbollah operatives in one go, in 10 minutes, shooting at 100 different targets all at the same time. Pretty amazing, amazing feat. But in the meantime, Israel has achieved a lot in South Lebanon. They've taken over many of the villages. They've taken over all the strategic locations that Hezbollah had established. They've gone house to house in some of these big, relatively big towns where Hezbollah was well established. They flattened some of the villages right on the Israeli border that Hezbollah was using in order to attack Israel. They've depopulated, if you will, much of southern Lebanon. It's going to be interesting during the ceasefire. Are civilians going to come back into this territory? That is not going to be good for Israel if that happens. And how is Israel going to make sure Hezbollah doesn't sneak in as well? Israel's making really good progress in clearing out Hezbollah from southern Lebanon and establishing this buffer zone all the way to the Litani River. And Trump just stopped it, halted it, almost in the middle. Now, I think much of the achievements have already been made, and we'll see whether Israel keeps the ceasefire and how it exactly works. We'll see if Hezbollah keeps the ceasefire. Israel in spite of the ceasefire with Gaza, keeps bombing Gaza, keeps taking out Hamas fighters in Gaza. So maybe they'll keep doing that in Lebanon as well. I'm not sure. So that's one. Israel has really achieved a lot, and now it's stopped. The goal of the Israeli campaign is the dismantling of Hezbollah, or at the very least, establishing this buffer zone throughout all of southern Lebanon, and and degrading Hezbollah enough that Hezbollah stops being a threat. But Trump is dangling in front of them this prospect of peace. Now, the last president of Lebanon who started negotiating peace with Israel and was serious about peace with Israel was assassinated in a car bomb in I think 1983, maybe 82, but I think it was 83. So there's a history of Lebanese presidents not surviving this idea of negotiating with Israel. So one wonders about how excited the president of Lebanon is to come and meet Netanyahu in the White House and negotiate. It's not clear again what Israel has to gain here. The Lebanese have shown no willingness to actually use their military to disarm Hezbollah. The Lebanese government has repeately demanded that Hezbollah be disbanded and be disarmed, and they've declared the military wing of Hezbollah illegal, and yet they've done nothing to actually achieve that. Would somehow a peace deal with Israel force their hand into doing something? I mean, on what basis do we think that would even happen? Are they strong enough? Are they capable enough? And isn't Lebanon really, really afraid of a new civil war? They know what happened last time when they had a civil war. They had a civil war that lasted from the early 1970s through the 1990s, through the early 1990s, so 20 years, devastated the country. It still hasn't really recovered from that. Do they, are they so afraid of another civil war that they're never going to go after Hezbollah? And the only, just like Hamas, the only party that can actually do the job, the only party that will actually dismantle Hezbollah, the only party that has the capability of doing it and the actual will to do it is Israel. So what does Israel gain from this ceasefire? Nothing. I mean, I don't know, goodwill from Trump, for whatever that's worth. But in terms of on the ground, its security, its responsibility to protect the individual rights, the safety of its citizens, it gains nothing. It gains nothing. And indeed, it compromises a lot, and it risks losing a lot. Losing the gains that it has made, the success that it has had, that it has had so far in dealing with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and in the rest of Lebanon. I don't think there's a good chance of a real peace deal between Israel and Lebanon without Hezbollah being dismantled. I mean, that will be a condition by Israel. And again, I'm not sure Lebanon can live up to that condition. So I don't see the point. So why is Trump doing this? I think Trump is forcing Israel into the ceasefire and forcing the Lebanese president to negotiate with Israel. It's a game of pretend, right? So what he's doing is he is positioning as the ceasefire is separate from Iran. It's all about peace between Lebanon and Israel. But the reality is that this is Trump compromising with the Iranians. This is Trump giving the Iranians something. This is Trump saving Hezbollah from annihilation to appease the Iranians. Because Trump is, I think without question right now, desperate for a deal with the Iranian regime. He thinks that it is politically necessary for him. He is really worried about the political consequences of going back on the offensive, going back to bombing Iran. Um, he is being convinced by whomever, the skeptics, the cynics out there, that regime change cannot happen, that and that he's never going to get a better deal with Iran than what he's going to get right now. And that is tragic. It's tragic for the United States because I don't think the Iranian threat will go away. It's tragic for Israel because I don't think the Iranian threat will go away. And it's, of course, tragic for the Iranian people who have been oppressed by this regime for 47 years. Maybe in those initial years, many Iranians supported the regime, but today, very few, I think, Iranians support the regime. And there's a real opportunity for regime change. Again, I repeat, I am a believer that a regime change is possible, that if the United States and Israel continue with the bombing campaign, continue with the war, the regime will fall. But every time Trump negotiates with them, he gives them legitimacy. Every time Trump negotiates with them, he sanctions them. Every time Trump is weak on them, you know, he gives them life. He gives them life. Now, I will say this: this blockade is going to have devastating effects on the Iranians. It basically destroys their income. Much of the money that comes from the oil trade goes to the IRGC. It's the money they use to pay salaries. It's the money they use to buy weapon systems. So it's going to have devastating economic effects on Iran. But it also has real, potentially real problems for oil production well into the future. Iran doesn't have a lot of capacity to store oil. They can probably keep pumping oil for maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, and store it without shipping it. But then they have to shut down oil wells. Now, I don't know much about oil wells, but my understanding is, and maybe some of you know more about this than I do and can correct me, is that if you close down an oil well, it's very difficult to restart it. And the oil well, in a sense, gets polluted. It gets water comes in because now the pressure is lower because you're not pumping anything out, and there's a space left. Water comes in, and that water dilutes, basically forces some of the oil into kind of the cracks in the rocks and makes it very difficult to get to that oil. And oil wells can easily lose between 5 to 10% of their capacity because they've been shut down for a while. Ideally, when you drill a well and you start pumping, you don't stop until the well is dry. So Iran does not want to shut down its oil wells, but it will have to if they run out of the capacity to store and they can't ship the oil out. So the blockade is really good. It really puts real pressure on the Iranians. Maybe they'll compromise. It's hard to tell exactly how much they'll compromise and on what will they compromise. But they are. Whoops, what's going on here? Right. But they are going to be significantly economically weakened by this, not only in the short run, but potentially also in the long run. So that is all good news, and it's possible. It's possible. The Iranians will decide to cut a deal with Trump. I think that would be unfortunate. I also think that it's possible, maybe even likely, that even if they cut a deal with Trump and they survive, that within months there will be protests again, and the regime will fall. I think as they, it really depends on the deal they cut with Trump. If Trump gives them a lot of money, unfreezes their assets, takes away all of the sanctions, and allows the Iranian economy to completely recover, then maybe this regime survives. Maybe this regime survives. It would be, again, horrifically tragic if that's the case. So the biggest motivation ultimately for people to come into the streets and to try to get rid of this regime is economic distress. Sadly, I don't know that a majority of Iranians are willing to fight for freedom, just for freedom, unless it's also associated with getting rid of the economic suffering that this regime has inflicted on them. If that suffering goes away, if suddenly there's a huge flow of money into Iran, maybe the regime survives, and that would be horrific. So I am hoping the ceasefire falls apart. I'm hoping the hardliners in Iran prevent any compromise, and that the Israelis and the Americans have to go back in and ultimately keep on bombing until this regime actually falls. Even if that doesn't happen, just to put this on a positive spin, look, Israel is safer, both from Hezbollah and from Iran and from Hamas. Not as safe as it should be, not as safe as it could be, but safer. A weakened Iran, and Iran will come out of this weakened one way or the other, is good for America, it's good for Israel. It just was so close. It was so close. And Israel was so close in Gaza, and Israel is so close in Lebanon, and the United States and Israel are so close in Iran. And somehow they're going to let total victory elude them. It's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. I mean, Iran is not winning. By no measure can Iran win, but it cannot lose as much as it should have. Oil prices, by the way down, right? Stock market, because of the ceasefire, back up to all-time highs, or some of the indexes. So, yeah, that's the crazy part of this, right? Oil is down to 90. Remember, it was 111. It's down to 90. Oil market is assuming there'll be a deal around Iran, and the more Trump talks, the lower oil prices go. And I think that's what scared Trump ultimately. It's the political cost, and the political cost manifests itself in higher oil prices. And the Republicans are telling him we're going to lose the midterms big time because of oil prices. People, really upset because of oil prices. Gold, by the way, back up to 4,800. Silver back up to 79. Again, 10-year bonds are still at 4.3, so still relatively high. And Bitcoin is way up to 75. It was as low as 65, 64. And stock markets, let's see, I think the S&P is, S&P is at an all-time high. 70, 41, 27, that's an all-time high. Let's see, the NASDAQ. NASDAQ says an all-time high. Well, maybe not. Yeah, it's at an all-time high. NASDAQ's at an all-time high. And yeah, I mean, my investment portfolio, thanks Trump, I guess, but my understanding of long-term geopolitics says this is not good. This is not good. It could have been a much better way. This blockade, plus the opening of the Straits of Hormuz on the first week or the second week of the war would be over now. The regime would have been fallen now. The economy of Iran would be in tatters now. But they didn't do that. All right. Let's see. All right. I think that is my updates for the war. Happy to take any questions you guys might have on it, or anything else, blockade, Lebanon, Gaza, whatever else you might have. All right. Let's see. Now, quick reminder, we're about halfway through the first hour, a little bit over halfway through the first hour, and I want to remind you that we have goals. Here I am on late at night in Warsaw doing a show. We have a deal, right? We have to reach certain minimums in terms of funding to make this show viable and possible, and for me to take the time to do this. Time is money. $250 an hour is kind of the target. Value for value. You listen, it's available for free, true, but you should pay for the values you received, trade value for value. And so please consider supporting the show through stickers, through asking a question. Asking a question is great because you get to shape the show that way. You get me to talk about the things that interest you. So please consider doing that. We still got a long way to go just for the first hour goal. We've got 25 minutes to get there, but please consider adding to your support so that, it incentivizes me to do these shows late at night from Europe after a full day of hopping between countries, every day a different country this week. All right, the good news, the really big good news is that Viktor Orbán lost. He didn't just lose, he was crushed in the Hungarian election over the weekend. Viktor Orbán had been prime minister of Hungary for 16 years, and since 2010. He had been a prime minister, we talked about this, a period before that, but in his first term as prime minister, he had been kind of a regular center-right candidate. His turn towards, call it post-liberal right-wing or illiberal right-wing or authoritarian right-wing came in 2010, nationalist and very much statist, anti-free markets, and unbelievably corrupt, and got the government involved in a lot of things, but also got his buddies to own media. He changed the Constitution. He changed the way people vote, all in an effort to maintain power forever. And one of the truly astounding things about the victory over Orban in the election on Sunday is the fact that that in spite of all his efforts to rig the election, I mean, not rig the election on the day of election, but rig the election well in advance of the election, trying to make sure that he won and won forever. In spite of all that, in spite of the fact that it was a huge uphill battle for the opposition to take him out, not only did they take him out, they thrashed him. And they have, I think, a 2/3 majority in the parliament, so they have the ability to change the Constitution, to undo some of the horrible changes that Orban made to try to make it more difficult to change the party in power. Now maybe they'll be corrupted by the fact that these now will work in their behalf, but I hope not. At least it's the opposition leader who just won, who's the future prime minister, just went on the TV station that had never really had him on, but that is basically run by one of Orban's friends, and basically saying that they were going to, in a sense, make sure that the media companies are truly privatized and do away with, that particular channel in particular, do away with state-funded and state-subsidized media. So again, it's going to be interesting what they do. The opposition party, to be clear, is not left. The opposition party is center-right. They agree with Orban on many of his policies, including on immigration. They're just better on a few things. They're much better on Russia. Orban was an obstacle to the EU supporting Ukraine. That obstacle is gone now. This new government will support Ukraine over Russia. Orban was a friend of Putin's, a puppet of Putin's, and a supporter of Putin's. So this government will be much more focused on the EU, much more focused on Europe, and turn its back, I think, on Putin and support Ukraine. That is huge. There is a big aid package targeting Ukraine that was being vetoed by Orban. The new prime minister said one of the first things he'll do is retract that veto and allow the aid package to go through. The Ukrainians are happy right now. The EU is happy right now. This is all good news. it's, this is also a major defeat for J.D. Vance and generally the Trump administration. Trump and J.D. Vance were huge Orban fans. Indeed, Trump tweeted just before the election support for Orban. J.D. Vance, of course, in the days before the election was in Hungary campaigning for Orban, which is very unusual, maybe unprecedented, for an American vice president to directly participate, directly campaign for a foreign leader is, I think, unheard of. But he did that for Orban. This is a slap in the face for the whole post-liberal agenda of the right, of Patrick Deneen and Vermeulen and J.D. Vance and even Marco Rubio, the national conservative agenda that viewed Orban as a model. So the new government, I think, is going to be less Christian, although still a little bit. They're still conservatives. It's going to be less interventionist. They're still statist, but less so. Much more focused on integration with the EU, which is good, and much more focused on supporting Ukraine, which is also good. We will see how good they really are in the future, but the fact that Orban is out is a massive benefit to the world, never mind to Hungary itself. One other aspect of this is interesting. One of the things that Orban government did, even though Hungary is a poor country, it has underperformed all its East European neighbors. I mean, all the more wealthy East European neighbors. So it's been, even though it was richer to begin with than places like Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, Poland, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, all of those countries have way outpaced Hungary in terms of GDP per capita, in terms of economic growth, economic success, way, way, way outpaced it. So Hungary was not doing well economically. In spite of that, somehow the Hungarian government found money to support all kinds of alt-right, new right causes all around the world. Reform Party in the UK, Nigel Farage's party, got a lot of money from Hungary, of all places. Think tanks all over Europe that advocated for nationalism, for anti-immigration, and for kind of a Christianization of Europe, also lobbied for a pro-Russian agenda. They got a lot of money from the Hungarian regime. There are a number of intellectuals, American intellectuals, who live in Budapest, in Hungary, and who get salaries from Hungarian think tanks funded by Orban, funded by the Hungarian government. Now, I assume that funding is all going to go away. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that impacts reform, how that impacts these various think tanks around Europe, and how it impacts think tanks in Hungary, and in particular, those American intellectuals who've been living off of the money from the state, the money that Orban has confiscated through the state, and dishing out to them. Unfortunately, it might mean they return to the United States, which would be really, really, really bad. So, yeah, really, really happy to see Orban leave. I can't remember when the last time I was in Hungary. Maybe 3 years ago. I'm pretty sure it was post-COVID. I was there speaking for a think tank, an anti-Orban think tank, and they told me all the horror stories about the corruption, about the violation of rights, and about just how bad Orban was. So I'm sure they're ecstatic. So I'm happy for them that he is gone. The friends I have from Hungary are all really, really happy. People within kind of the broadly free market world from Hungary are all happy about this. So this is definitely something to celebrate. It is a major event. Netanyahu is always supportive of Orban because Orban had been pro-Israel in spite of having some, potentially anti-Semitic elements within his political party on the far right. Orban was pro-Israel. Well, the new prime minister has also indicated he is going to be pro-Israel. He has already had a conversation with Netanyahu. It seems to be very friendly. It seems to have gone very, very well. So one thing that the Hungarian election, I think, suggests is that the population is willing to tolerate a lot. But one thing it is not willing to tolerate, it's not willing to tolerate just extreme corruption combined with economic stagnation. Like, if you're corrupt but the economy still grows, maybe they'll tolerate that. If you're not corrupt and there's stagnation, maybe they'll tolerate that. But corruption, I mean, obvious, explicit, unequivocal corruption, where people around the leadership are getting rich, and stagnation, and a democratic process where they're still voting, they will rebel. At least that seems to be the evidence from Hungary. And that is good news. That is good news in terms of the rise of the new right all over Europe, or the new left all over Europe. But it's more likely the new right will be on the rise. And as they gain power and they become corrupt, which they inherently are, because their whole modus operandi is cronyism, as they become corrupt, and as the economic policy fails, as they must, because the moral is the practical, and the economic policies are immoral and wrong and anti-free markets, and therefore they will fail. Ultimately, they will be voted out. So it's a warning message to a lot of these far-right European political parties out there. Let's see. Okay, let me take a few questions about Orban, because I see there's a bunch of questions about Orban. Let me start with Danny, who is from Hungary, because he paid in Hungarian forint. I don't know why. Well, I know why. Hungary is a good example of why the euro is good, right? Hungary is not on the euro. It has its own currency, therefore it has its own central bank printing its own money. And I think the last I looked, they had inflation of 23%. Another reason why Orban is gone. Populations do not tolerate inflation. One thing that people hate is inflation. If Hungary had been part of the euro, he couldn't have inflated, and he couldn't got away with some of the really bad stuff that he did, right? Not having a central bank that prints money on demand is a real discipline on countries that tend to have corrupt governments, corrupt and irresponsible governments. So I'm even in that sense, I prefer the euro to having every country have its own currency. Like Montenegro, one of the first things Montenegro did when it gained independence was adopt the euro as its currency. Even though it's not a member of the EU, it just said, just like Panama and El Salvador and Ecuador all have dollarized economies. They're all on the dollar, which means they only have inflation if the United States have inflation. And Montenegro adopted the euro, which has moderated the craziness that the government can engage in because they don't have a printing press. All right. Anyway, Danny asks, for the fall of the Orban regime, at least he did not try to deny the elections. Yes, to Orban's credit, there was fear that he would try to deny it, claim fraud, but it was so overwhelming. It was so big. He didn't even bother. Right? He called up his opponent and accepted defeat like a responsible human being. Maybe Trump could learn something from him. Then he goes on, may he have fun maintaining his football stadium next to his house without taxpayer money. Yeah, good luck on that. Although he's stolen so much of it, maybe he has enough to be able to do it even without ongoing thievery. Let's see if there was... Neil Kahn says Orban out of power is very good news for Ukraine. Yes, very good news for Ukraine. This is he was a real barrier for help, financial and military from the EU countries. All right, guys, we're only $15 away from our first hour goal. So please consider supporting the show and asking questions. As you can see, I answer all my questions. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Like the show if you like it, but it costs you nothing and it helps the algorithm. But please step in and help us out to reach our goal. This is just the first hour goal. We do have a second hour goal as well, and we will be going into the second hour. Let's see. Neil Kahn also says, far-right backlash to Orban loss isn't policy. Magyar, who is the new, will be the new prime minister, mirrors Orban except corruption and pro-Russia stance, and maybe a little bit more pro-free market. It's ignorance, stupidity, and right-wing influences losing funding. Yes, that's what I said earlier. Via think tanks is CPAC hungry. Yeah, that's another one. CPAC was doing CPAC hungry because Orban was funding it. CPAC is, of course, the conference for conservatives, but it's really become a new right conference, really since Trump's second term. It's gone from CPAC even having, free market guys on the agenda to being pure new right kind of agenda. CPAC is going to lose CPAC Hungary because the new government will not fund CPAC doing something in Hungary. I think Magyar, the new prime minister, said if CPAC wants to come to Hungary, they're welcome. They just have to pay their way. They're not going to get government money. The Hungarians are not going to pay an American conservative group to come and do a conference in Hungary that does not at all serve the interests of the Hungarians. So yes, absolutely, Neil Kahn. Let's see. Neil Kahn also says Peter Magyar, former Fidesz, he used to be a member of Orban's political party, and he left 2 years ago to start his own party. But policy-wise, there's not a huge amount of difference between them. Neil Kahn says left in 2024 amid child abuse scandal allegations and split from wife. Joined TISA, a strong EU election performance in 2024, and now defeated Orban after 16 years. So yeah, we will see how good Peter Magyar really is once he becomes prime minister and actually starts governing. And again, Neil Kahn, the Hungarian election could have significant implications for the U.S. as Orban has been involved with U.S. right-wing think tanks, some linked to Hungary-funded institutions like the Danube Institute. Yes, and again, the Americans working in Hungary, it'll be interesting what happens to them. It could be that the Hungarian government funded directly some of the new right think tanks in the United States. We'll see what the fallout is in the months to come. It's going to be interesting. All right, let's see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, Neil Kahn also says, I already saw in 2024 that Magyar had a strong chance of defeating Orban. He overperformed in the EU election, was charismatic, and could appeal even to Orban voters without opposition's negative baggage. Yeah, I that must have happened because he really did dominate the election. It wasn't close, as I said. So good for him. All right, let's see. Remind you again to ask questions. Anything you want. The floor is open in terms of the range of questions you can ask. So please do that. We've got about $200, $210 to raise to make our second hour goal. We'll be going into that second hour in about 5 minutes. All right, let's see. A couple of stories about Mamdani. Mamdani is, posting these videos. He's such a scum, really a kind of a sleazy, salesy, horrible human being. Anyway, he has just announced, together with the governor of New York, that they are going to tax. They're going to start taxing people's ultra wealthy second homes where that are in New York State, primarily in New York City, where the owner is not living in the home most of the year. So this is Governor Hochul. Too many ultra-wealthy second homes sit empty most of the year, part of our skyline, but not part of this city. This is about New York. Anyone treating New York City like an investment should be contributing to what makes it valuable. Well, they are contributing to what makes it valuable. First of all, they bought this condo, some of them worth $100, $200 million. You don't make a city valuable by paying taxes. They're already paying property taxes, I assume. To the extent that they have businesses in New York, many of them do. They're paying business taxes to New York. This idea of which is now really gaining momentum on the left, of just milking the rich, just going after the rich, using people's resentment of hatred of the rich to fund their various programs, to fund the ever-expanding welfare state. They realize they're running out of other people's money. So they have to keep taxing, keep raising taxes, but they can't raise taxes on the middle class or they'll lose their vote. So all they can do is go after millionaires and billionaires. We saw that in Washington State recently. We're seeing that in California with this threat of a wealth tax passed through referendum. It's just unbelievable, right? Again, if you buy a second home in New York and you have a second home in New York, who are you hurting exactly? You're not using government services. So, what are you doing exactly? But it's a way to tax millionaires and billionaires without the threat of them leaving the city. Because if they sell their condo, sell their apartment, somebody will buy it. And if that person doesn't live in it, they'll have to pay the same tax. So, people wanting to buy super expensive properties and then not use them. Why is that a problem for the city? They're not using city services. Again, the paying property taxes. It's just, we have morons on the right and morons on the left. We have Trump and these clowns. That's all we have. And if you watch the video of Mamdani announce this, he's so full of himself. He loves confiscating people's wealth. He goes, you see, I promised I'm going to tax the wealthy. Well, here's the first one. We're going to get them. We're going to get those wealthy people. It's pretty disgusting, pretty awful. The second story out of Mamdani is also stupid and awful and moronic and everything, but it's kind of funny too. So Mamdani has announced that he is fulfilling another of his campaign promises, tax the rich. We just heard that. The second one was city-owned grocery stores. So he's just announced that the first city-owned grocery store is going to be in Manhattan. Like every borough is going to have a city-owned grocery store. And the first one is going to be in Manhattan. It's going to cost, $30 million. And it will open, what is it now, 2026? It'll open in 2029. It'll take 3 years to open it. And he's super excited about it lowering cost of food and vegetables and service and whatever else you buy in a grocery store for New Yorkers. $30 million. 3 years to open. I mean, have you ever been to New York City? There's like a grocery store in every corner. They're Rite Aids, pharmacies that also have food stuff and stuff like that on every corner or every other corner where there's no grocery store. There is no shortage of supermarkets. And it's not like it's one company. So there's massive competition. Prices are low. relative to rents and that they have to own property in or rent property in New York to run a grocery store, and transportation costs and everything else. Prices are competitively low. But no, we're going to have a New York City-owned grocery store that will lose a lot of money. Not only will it cost $30 million to open, but then it will lose money year to year. And it will probably be just as expensive as every other grocery store. By the way, if you wanted to just buy a grocery store in New York City right now, it would cost you $2 million. If you wanted to build one or renovate a space to turn into a grocery store in New York City right now, and you are private, it would cost you $3 million. I don't know what Mamdani is building. This is going to be the Taj Mahal of grocery stores on steroids. This will be it's supposed to be a city run, so it'll be Greek columns everywhere and I don't know, gold-plated shelves. $30 million to build a grocery store? These people are nuts. And 3 years? You could buy a grocery store tomorrow and open it next month. You could renovate a space and turn it into a grocery store in a few months. 3 years, $30 million. This is how socialism goes bankrupt. They have no clue. They have no clue, and they have no incentive to get a clue. No incentive to get a clue. No incentive to figure this out. It's not their money. Why not spend it? Hey, we can tax those billionaires' penthouses that they're not living in, or they only live in a couple of months a year. We'll tax that. And so why not spend like there's no tomorrow? As long as we let them keep taxing us, nothing is going to change. All right. It appears that a little bit, Yale and Harvard are figuring out that, people don't like them. They have a bad rap. And they don't know exactly why. I think Harvard has a better clue than Yale. So Yale just appointed just got a report from a 10-member committee that was tasked with assessing academia's role in creating the forces that are challenging American colleges and universities. I mean, basically, by all accounts, America's trust and belief in our universities is at all-time lows. And people have a discounting the value of a college education dramatically. I mean, college, particularly at the Ivy League, high costs. It's not clear what the admission standards are, who gets in, who gets out, and who gets in and who doesn't, and why. Very uneven academic standards within the Ivy Leagues. Generally, massive grade inflation. Everybody gets an A or B. Real fears about free speech on campus. The committee decided that all these are real, that they're all problems and they're all reasons why there's massive discontent over higher education's worthiness. I mean, this is all motivated by the fact that Americans have described, real misgivings about the state of academia and its role in the world. 1 second, let me just see where we are. Oh wow, how do we get there? Somebody came in with a lot of money. Okay, that's there. Okay. Wes did $100. Thank you, Wes. While I wasn't watching, he did $100 sticker, and then we've got some $50 questions, and we're rocking and rolling. This is great. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. All right. So the committee wrote that, quote, trust is earned by doing what you say you're going to do, and ideally doing it well. Ooh, what a thought. And they describe widespread uncertainty about the fundamental purpose and mission of higher education. So higher education is not communicating what its goals are, and it's certainly, the perception is that whatever the goals are, doesn't seem to have good results. According to this article in the New York Times, universities have faced pressure to help address society problems. The committee noted, saying they were, quote, expected to be all things to all people, selective but inclusive, affordable but luxurious, meritocratic but equitable. And the professors and the committee added, quote, without a clear mission and purpose, it became difficult to judge whether colleges and universities are living up to the fundamental commitments, because we don't know what those commitments are. I mean, think about it. At Yale, undergraduate tuition before financial aid is $90,000. Most people get financial aid. What are they actually paying? How much are they actually paying? And of course, a lot of the money they get, are they getting from the government, which just gives it without any really standards, without evaluating whether this is money well spent. A bank, for example, wouldn't lend you money unless they thought you could pay it back. The government just pays you for education, whether you're getting a degree that will result in a job or not, whether you're going to university that is worth it or not, whether you're going to get a good return on your investment or not. But that's the problem of government funding education. Of course, that is not something the committee looked at, because that they take for granted, as nobody questions that. Nobody would challenge that. So Yale commissioned the report last April, basically as the Trump administration was, going after elite universities and withdrawing research funds and other funds. The report is suggesting reforms, but these are minimal reforms, and they don't go to the heart of the problem, the ideological problem, the problem of kind of the corruption within the academia, the total domination of the left in so many fields, particularly in a school like Yale. There's nothing of that. They talk more about trying to make undergraduate admission less opaque, more decipherable, make the tuition costs clearer, and so that people know exactly what it's going to cost them actually to attend. As the commission wrote, when selective admission seems so inexplicable, or worse, tilted in ways that benefit the already advantaged, it should come as no surprise that Americans do not trust the process. So the committee really, is recommending improving the process. And the best thing about it is that one of the recommendations of the committee is zealously protecting speech, zealously protecting free speech. Now, I don't think they quite understand what free speech means, but the idea of protecting speech and allowing for diversity of points of view, at least among the students, is a really, really good thing. They're also talking about adjusting grading practices and becoming more discriminating, that is, giving not just A's and B's. Academia is starting to look at itself and consider real changes to try to improve its stature. At Harvard, at the same time, they're going through the same kind of process of examining where they've gone wrong and what are the problems. And for them, one of the areas that they need improvement is what's called viewpoint diversity. Their faculty is way too monolithic. In response to that, what Harvard is doing is it's actually going to donors, asking them to contribute to make $10 million gifts. And each $10 million, these gifts will go to endowed professorships with non-mainstream viewpoints, or maybe leftist viewpoints, in order to diversify the faculty. I wonder if we could get an objectivist endowed professorship at Harvard in the name of viewpoint diversity under this program. I'll have to ask somebody. I have a feeling I could get one of our donors to give $10 million to Harvard for an endowed objectivist professorship. That would be cool. It might be worth $10 million, a one-time gift, to get that done. I'll have to follow up with that. Anyway, it looks like higher education is re-examining itself, is evaluating where it's gone wrong. The backlash is real, and we'll see how deep the examination goes, how serious it is, whether the faculty, there's a backlash from the faculty whose judgments are being questioned now, and what is the long-term outcome of all this. Okay, finally, an interesting development on the AI front. So AI models have been created, in particular, an AI model called Mythos. This is an AI model created by Anthropic. This is an AI model that specializes in finding bugs in software. Now, the problem is that once you find a bug in the software, you can exploit that bug to hack into the system. Last month, Mythos, right, they unleashed Mythos on a bunch of different programs, and Mythos discovered a whole bunch of bugs. And Anthropic was going to make this public, the software, and they decided to withhold it, which is an extraordinary act of corporate responsibility. They realized that this could result in a massive hacking campaign of private businesses, of government, of everything else. And what they decided to do with Mythos is, instead of unleashing it, getting it out there into the public and letting hackers use it in order to hack into computer systems all over the world, they would actually use Mythos to let companies know about the bugs so that they can be fixed. The government cybersecurity people are also involved in this. They are spooked because there are a bunch of bugs in government programming, maybe even in Pentagon programming, maybe in MSL programs, who knows where. So there's a frantic effort right now to figure out where these bugs are. These are bugs that have existed maybe sometimes 30, 40, 50 years in programs that were written a long, long time ago. And now there's a frantic effort to find programmers to fix these bugs. Now, again, you can use AI to help, but you also need human programmers to follow up, to test it, to make sure AI is doing the job right, to figure out whether it's a real bug. This was a big story earlier, I think it was last week, but particularly at old software, the rate at which the bugs are being found is pretty astounding. Some people are calling this bug Armageddon and comparing it to Y2K. Y2K, they were supposed to shut down all the computers in the world because the computers were not configured for the year 2000 they only had 99, 98, 97, and when 2000 came about, they would go 00. They'd think it was 1900 and not 2000. Anyway, Armageddon never happened in Y2K, but now again, people are worried about this. For example, a bug was found in programming that was written in 1998 in something called OpenBSD operating system. That had to be, that had to be fixed. And actually, the guy who actually wrote the original code discovered it was his code that had the bug in it, and it was open source. So a lot of modern software is a layer sitting on open source software, and a lot of the bugs are in the open source layer. And now, how do you go back there and fix the bugs? And who's going to do the work? So there's a mad rush to try to figure this out. I'm sure some of you know more about this than I do. Those of you in the computer industry, in the programming industry, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Big story about this in the Wall Street Journal. Yeah, I mean, here's a paragraph. Some of the greatest risks to companies will likely come from dependence on so-called open source tools built collaboratively, often by volunteers who may not have the resources to quickly triage the bug reports. The infrastructure underpins much of the modern internet. So this is going to be really interesting to see. And I think companies are going to hire more people. As people are being fired because of AI, now they need to be hire people to help fix all these bugs that AI is finding. For example, Anthropic software discovered more than 100 bugs in Firefox browser. And it could write software, the AI could write software to exploit the bug. Now, Firefox had other measures to prevent anybody from hacking, even with that bug and exploiting that bug. But not everybody has that, and you know. So anyway, this creates real significant security problems that are challenging software companies all over the country. All right. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? I think we'll call that, well, it's an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, we'll call that a day, a night, or whatever. You know, I could talk about Trump's fight with the Pope. We can talk about NATO, but let's call it a night. Wow, you know, you guys have been very generous, so thank you. Thank you. I see we've got a bunch of questions coming in. That's terrific. All right, that is the news for this Thursday, April 16th. All right, let me say something quickly about our sponsors, and then we'll take you. We'll move to the super chat. ARI is encouraging you to look at ARI Campus, where ARI Live, not ARI Campus, ARI Live, where they're offering a variety of different courses. On a variety of different topics. For example, I next week will start a course on the history of the corporation, history of business in the United States. Is the corporation a good, a moral, a market-driven, for example, corporate business form, and how has it performed over the history of the U.S. and how have corporations and business more generally, more broadly, how has it evolved? How has business evolved in the United States? We'll talk about antitrust and regulations, hostile takeovers and monopolies and all that good stuff. That'll start next week. You can still sign up, and you can do so at aynrand.org/start here. I think you can get a discount on this too. 26YBS10. That discount code I think will work on Ayn Rand Live as well. And then let me do one more sponsor, and then we'll do the others next time. Michael Williams is the originator of Defenders of Capitalism, defendersofcapitalism.com. You should check them out. Sign up on the website for the email newsletter. You know, and think about maybe inviting Michael or me, because I work for Defenders of Capitalism. Michael or me to give a talk, to do a seminar. For your organization around capitalism. I know that Michael is that I am here actually in Warsaw as part of a free market roadshow, which is something put on by the Austrian Center in Vienna. They do a roadshow around all over Europe. They've done it for 20 years. I participated in many of their roadshows. And you travel from city to city to city speaking on free markets. The Ayn Rand Institute is a partner in this. So is defendersofcapitalism.com. Michael will be giving a number of talks on capitalism, on defending capitalism properly, morally, at the Free Market Roadshow. If you're in Florida, you can, whoops, that's the wrong place. 1 second. You can check it out. Let me just see where they're going to be in Florida. He is going to be in Florida. Yeah, Mike's going to be in Washington, D.C. at Americans for Tax Reform on Wednesday, April 22nd, in Boca Raton at Florida Atlantic University on Thursday, the 23rd. Check out Free Market Roadshow to get more details and if you'd like to attend one of those sessions. But you too can invite Michael or me to give a talk at your business, your corporation. Check out defendersofcapitalism.com. All right, let's turn to your questions. Quick reminder. Consider becoming a supporter of the Yaron Brook Show on patreon.com. That monthly support is incredibly valuable to me. It's predictable and it contributes to my ability to do these shows whenever I can and to do as many of them as possible. So please consider becoming a regular monthly supporter of the Yaron Brook Show on patreon.com. Just put in Yaron Brook Show on Patreon and it'll just take a credit card and it'll charge the credit card every month. So please consider doing that. All right, let's see, Michael. Well, no, I should start with $50 question. So let me do a Michael $50 question. Yeah, there's Michael. Michael says, if we're going to criticize the $3.8 billion sent to Israel, a high-tech liberal democracy and major industrial partner with annual investments in the United States exceeding $24 billion, why are they silent about the $1.5 billion sent to a state like Egypt? I think it's more like $3 billion sent to Egypt. I may be wrong, but I thought it was $3 billion sent to Egypt. You know, the most sophisticated ones will say that the only reason we sent the $3 billion to Egypt is because that guarantees peace with Israel. That is, in a sense, it's America bribing Egypt to have peace with Israel. So even the $1.5 billion or $3 billion to Egypt is really for Israel. I've heard that a lot from that community. But yeah, why? What about all the other foreign aid? There's tons of foreign aid that is done out there. But even if you add up all the foreign aid, it is a fraction of a fraction. It's a fraction of a percent of total government spending. It is. You could cut it all, and it wouldn't really make a dent in the deficit. It's really, really meaningless. The fact is, this is all a distraction from the fact that in order to really deal with the deficit, you have to deal with Social Security and Medicare. Nobody wants to admit that. Nobody wants to recognize that. Nobody wants to do anything about it. And this is the consequence. But look, the whole emphasis on the $3.8 billion given to Israel, sent to Israel, all which flows back to the United States in the form of purchases from American arms manufacturers, and all of that investment deployed today to help America in its war with Iran. So and generally deployed in order to fight mutual enemies, Islamist enemies of both the United States and Europe and Western civilization more broadly. So $3.8 billion is very, very cheap. It's a very, very low cost to provide state-of-the-art at the front defense from the horrors of Islamism. So the only reason they criticize it is not because doesn't benefit the United States. I think it does. I think it's a great investment, but because they hate Israel, they hate Jews. It's driven ultimately by anti-Semitism. Now, I would advocate stopping the $3.8 billion, both because I don't think Israel needs the money. I don't think the United States should be subsidizing Israel in any way. And I don't think it's helpful for Israel to be subsidized. I think it hurts Israel as well. I think it's even though I think you could view it as an investment rather than just a contribution, I think Israel would arm itself to the hilt anyway and do all the fighting anyway. And this would take this issue off the table for these people. All right, thank you, Michael, for that $50, and again, thank you to Wes for the $100 sticker. That made a huge difference in getting us to where we need to be. I think Michael is also at over $100, given his $50 and then multiple $20 questions and so on. All right, but let's do some more 50s. Arthur has a two-part $50 question, so another $100. Thank you, Arthur. Really appreciate that. There's a fatalism among objectivists I find both unwarranted and strange. We're living in a time when you can start with nothing and create $1 trillion worth of values like Elon Musk. The leverage provided to your intelligence by our technology is almost unfathomable. You don't need to zoom that far out for Trump, wokeism, Putin, Xi, racism, and all the rest as a present nuisance rather than a prelude to Armageddon. I mean, there's some truth to what you're saying. We live in the best of times materially, and you're absolutely right in terms of the leverage provided to intelligence by AI and by just the computer, by all these tools that are available to us now. All of that is true. The ability to create wealth, the ability to do startups, the ability to, there are plenty of jobs. The economy is not booming, but it is chugging along, and there's enormous upside to this economy, primarily because of the breakthroughs in technology, and then the breakthroughs in biotech that have the potential to dramatically extend your life, all of you guys' lives. And it's true that there's a sense in which these people are a nuisance, but there's a sense in which it's much more than a nuisance. Trump, Putin, Putin has killed, 2 million people. Well, no, killed and injured and maimed well over 2 million people if you count Russians and Ukrainians. That's more than a nuisance, particularly to him, to the people around him, to Russians and Ukrainians. That is destructive to their lives. Their lives don't exist for many of them anymore. Hundreds of thousands have died. Trump is making it more difficult to succeed. So yeah, there are lots of opportunities, but fewer than there would be otherwise. And at the margin, he's making it real tough for people. And for some people, he's raised the cost of living. He's taxing us and destroying our institutions that are going to be necessary for a good future. That is, for this technology and everything to progress and to continue achieving, we're going to need those institutions. And if he destroys those institutions, it's going to be a lot tougher to look significantly into the distance and see good outcomes. And the same is true of wokeism and Xi could go to war tomorrow and disrupt a lot of the success and a lot of this, leverage that we have. Racism doesn't affect most of you, but if you happen to be a minority that's trying to start a business and racism is expanding in Silicon Valley, funding might be more difficult to achieve. Now, I don't think we're there. We're far from that scenario actually happening, but you have to be worried about that. So I wouldn't say it's a nuisance. I think the problem is that certainly Trump, Putin, and Xi have guns. And potentially the racists will have guns if they win elections. And potentially the wokeism have guns when they win elections. So we can't trivialize the power, the ability of evil to disrupt our lives in significant ways. Thank you, Arthur. That was very generous. Good questions. All right, let's see. All right, back to Michael. The deepest form of slavery is the hunger for being understood by others, Dostoevsky. Yeah, I don't like that because it's equating physical force, slavery, with a hunger to be understood. It's like the people say, you can't be free if you're poor. You can't be free on an empty stomach. None of that is true. They're not defining their terms. What does slavery actually means? Slavery is oppression by force. It's forced labor. It's you don't have a life. Not being understood by other people, move on. Go find others. Dostoevsky was a bad guy, philosophically, a really, really bad guy. And I think that is a bad statement. Michael, are there any third world countries with cold climates? It seems only nations with warmer climates have third world economies. the colder climate appear to have all industrialized. Is this coincidence or out of necessity? Well, arguably, Russia is maybe not a third world country, but it's not a first world country. And Russia's cold. Let's see, Mongolia is pretty cold, and it is a second or maybe third world country. North Korea is cold, and it is a third world country or fourth world country. China before liberalization was cold and a third world country. Now it's a first, second world country, but parts of China are really cold. No, I don't think weather has anything to do with it. In other words, anything to do with it. On the other hand, Hong Kong is hot. Singapore is hot. So it's all about system of government, property rights. It's all about culture, a culture that respects individual rights, a culture that respects property rights, a culture that embraces individual liberty is a culture that thrives. It's to some extent an accident of history that started in America and spread to North America more predominantly. The biggest pro-market revolution right now is happening in Argentina. Now, is Argentina hot or cold? Well, it depends where in Argentina you go. So I don't believe it's got anything to do with climate. Italy, relatively hot, and birth of the Renaissance. So Greece, hot. Yeah, it's problematic, but Greece civilization, and it was hot. So no, I don't think there's a link between and the Arab world. If you think about the Islamic, Renaissance or Enlightenment or just Golden Age, it's probably not an Enlightenment. It was Golden Age. It was hot, and yet they had a Golden Age. So I don't think it's related to weather. Michael, do we have a population that has turned against economic freedom? How does this contrast with the population in the 80s and 90s? It's amazing how quickly things can change for the worst. Yes. So I think the population has turned against economic freedom. I think they're much more antagonistic to economic freedom than they were in the 80s and 90s. I think a lot of that has to do with the financial crisis and the lessons learned supposedly from the financial crisis. The blame was put on economic freedom. And yes, things can change very, very, very quickly, unfortunately, and often for the worst. So yeah, but it's definitely worse than back then. It's the power of ideas. The rotten ideas in the culture interpreted the financial crisis, blamed everything on capitalism, and the consequence of that is a mistrust and a rejection of a capitalist economy. Mr. Itzmark, something like that. We are waiting for you in Porto. I'm coming. I promise. I'm coming. I'll be there tomorrow. Opening banquet. I'll be there. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I assume my plane will be on time. It won't be canceled, and I'll make it. All my flights so far being on the money. Catherine, do you think Iran could fall in big anarchist chaos if the current regime falls? Is a peaceful transfer to another regime realistic? Yeah, I think so. I don't see why not. Persia has always been a conglomeration of a variety of different people. Now, it could be that there will be a civil war between the people who want to establish freedom and the remnants of the IRGC. But it's not going to be anarchist chaos of every ethnic group. I mean, a lot of people are trying to argue that is the case, but there's no basis for that in Iranian or Persian history. They usually come together and unite. There's a massive interest in all these different ethnic groups to unite. I don't think there's a real interest in a massive civil war and many independence movements. I think ultimately they all want to be part of a central government, and most of them would prefer that their central government be friendlier to individual liberty than the government is right now. Not all of them, but many of them. Not Javage Algorithm. Do many young objectivists want to be aggressive and change the world quickly An ARI, while trying to be realistic, extinguishes their militant enthusiasm. I don't know. I mean, no, I don't think that's true. I don't know. I'm sure many young objectivists want to be aggressive and change the world quickly. Okay. I mean, I don't think they know how. I don't think they have the capability or the knowledge to do it, but nobody's stopping them from trying. And ARI does not extinguish anybody. I mean, if somebody is not very knowledgeable or not a good ambassador of objectivism, ARI will say so. But ARI has no way to extinguish someone. If somebody starts a YouTube channel or does a podcast or goes out and tries to speak, I mean, we can't stop them. I don't have a mechanism to prevent people from doing that. Go for it. But if somebody is misrepresenting objectivism or just not very good, we might comment on that. We might say that. We might not support them. But that's not the same as extinguishing them. I don't know of anybody that's been extinguished by ARI. Not your average algorithm. Trying to teach someone who doesn't want to learn isn't just annoying, it's delusional. I think that's right. I think that's right. It's part of the problem. Most people don't think they need to learn, and therefore they're not a very receptive audience when you try to teach them. Hopper Campbell, can you find happiness living with a severe disability, physical or mental? If not, would euthanasia still be rights violation if the person couldn't commit suicide on his own? Can you find happiness living with a severe disability? I think yes. I mean, it would be limited by the pain that you suffer and by the disability, by inability to do certain things, but you still could find happiness at some level. I think that's true, physical and mental. Mental, again, depending on the extent of the disability and depending on how much pain was involved and how, and whether you were free from pain enough time to be able to achieve happiness. And for those who are not, euthanasia is not a rights violation. If the person wants to die and you're just helping them do something they clearly, unequivocally have documented that this is what they want, helping them get it done is not a rights violation. You're fulfilling their wish, and it's not an irrational wish. It's a rational wish that you're fulfilling. So I wouldn't consider it a rights violation. It's illegal today in the world, but I don't think it's a rights violation. Liam, when the far left and far right meet, Jews become the target. Yes. It's quite remarkable how these two groups are united on this issue and no other issue. Well, it's not true. They're united on the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is collectivism. That's the fundamental that unites them, and that's the important thing that unites them, and that makes them more similar than different. And then one consequence of collectivism is to look for a group to scapegoat. And the Jews are convenient for both far left and far right. But it's the collectivism that is the fundamental evil. And it's the fundamental similarity. It's what makes them the same in a philosophical sense. Everything else is just details. Liam, it's insane how alone Ben Shapiro is. Everyone he hired that became famous due to his platform has become an anti-Semitic white Christian nationalist. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that everybody. I mean, Klavan is still there, and I don't know that I'm ready to say that Matt Walsh and Knowles are anti-Semitic. They're certainly white nationalists or Christian nationalists anyway, if not white. But I don't know they're anti-Semitic. The people he still has on his platform are probably pretty careful not to express anti-Semitic views. But yes, Ben Shapiro is fairly alone, and that's, I mean, Mark Levin. It's Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, and that's because they're Jews. They care about Israel. They're fighting for Israel. But on many, many, many other issues, they're damn wrong. And they're dramatically flawed. And they made the bed that they are laying in. That is, they facilitated their enemies. They embraced national conservatism. They embraced the new right before it turned anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. They embraced it. And then they suddenly realized a monster that they had embraced, and they're trying to distance themselves from them. But as I've said in the past, I part of the blame for all this is the fact that Ben Shapiro would not criticize Trump the way he should have been criticized, backed him even when he knew Trump was immoral, in order to keep his audience, backed the national conservative movement. And this is true of Yoram Chazoni as well. Backed the national conservative movement. Yoram Chazoni created it. And then surprise, they turn against you. Yes, nationalism, collectivism will almost always be anti-Semitic. So surprise. Okay, Vikram says, I have a very poor impression of Hegseth, especially from the early days of this administration. Yet, of late, in press briefings for the Iran war, he puts things in ways that has me nodding my head vigorously in agreement. He sounds uncompromising. Comment, please. Yes, he's a religious nut. And religious nuts are often uncompromising. They want total war, which is good, but for all the wrong reasons. And, he is a nut. He's fired more generals, I think, in his term than all presidents since World War II combined, I think, something like that. He is a nut. He's a bad guy. He's a bad influence, because while he once in a while says things that are true, in particular when it comes to warriors, and in particular when it comes to winning wars, his motivation and his reasoning is all based on mysticism, on religion. And in that sense, he gives fighting a proper war and winning a bad name. So yes, bad people can sometimes sound really good on particular issues. Don't let that distract you from the fact that people like Hegseth are authoritarians, they're mystics, they're altruists in the sense that they're quite happy to sacrifice you to them. They're exploiters. And they do so, in Hegseth's case, in the name of religion, in the name of Christianity. Christianity has often been used as a justification for horrific violence. That's the Hegseth type of Christian. Michael, a lot of communists in Germany became Nazis once they saw it was more effective strategy to achieve totalitarianism. Will leftists in this country morph into MAGA adjacent force? Well, it's hard to tell. I don't think it'll quite happen that way, but I do think that both MAGA and the left, and some of the left, will ultimately morph into some new form that we're not familiar with yet, some form of nationalism, some form of religiosity combined with environmentalism, I think. Both MAGA plus the far left will morph into something new that will be much more authoritarian. We will see. That's been my prediction for the last 15 years, and I still expect that to happen, but we'll see. It's really hard to tell, hard to look into the future, and certainly impossible to tell what the time scale for these changes is going to be. Hopper Gamble, do a lot of miserable people not recognize they're miserable because stress and hate is all that's ever been around them? I mean, maybe, or maybe they still recognize they're miserable, but don't have a clue about what to do with it, or just consider it the normal state of life, the normal state of human beings. So don't even try to do anything about it, because this is just how life is. This is just life. There's nothing to do. All right, let's see. Michael again. At this point, are the Arab states more closely aligned with Israel or Iran? Well, Israel. Certainly the Gulf Arab states. But I'd say most of the Arab states, in the Gulf are much closer to Israel right now. I'm not sure Syria is. I'm not sure Iraq is. Syria is more aligned with Israel than Iran, but I don't think it's aligned with either one of those. Lebanon is more aligned with Israel. Iraq is probably split, but Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, those are all aligned with Israel. The Rational IP, looking forward to seeing you in Porto tomorrow. Me too, looking forward to it. Michael, will you be doing a July 4th YBS show barbecue meetup with all your fans? I'll be doing a show, I think. I'll be doing a show on the 4th of July. Ocon is not on over the 4th of July for a change this year. So I will be home and I'll be able to do a show. So yeah, I expect so. So hopefully you guys will all join me and we'll barbecue together over Zoom, over YouTube, not Zoom. Underestimate. Would it be worth it for Iran to drain oil into the ground or ocean to keep the wells pumping, pressure back on allies? Well, it wouldn't put pressure back on allies because they'd still be losing huge amounts of funds. I don't know enough about the economics of well drilling and well maintenance to know what the optimal strategy is. I doubt that putting it back into the ground, because it's very difficult to extract it. It's very difficult to control the process of doing that. But I don't know. I mean, we'd have to ask like a oil well expert. Maybe Alex Epstein would know. Newly Dan, collectivist words are appealing. Collectivist words are appealing, but can not be understood. How can these collectivist tropes be exposed? Well, the only reason they're appealing is because they leverage altruism. Collectivism is an outgrowth of altruism, and what makes them appealing is altruism. So the only way to show how evil they are is by challenging altruism. And that, of course, is very, very difficult in a culture that still views altruism as the only moral alternative, the only moral system. Federate, how would you feel about having your image and likeness made to sing and dance in a music video? I don't think I'd like it. I don't think I'd like it. I mean, I don't mind my image and voice being made to give lectures, AI lectures, I guess. But so I don't mind it, AI doing things that I would do anyway. But to do something that I wouldn't do would just be weird for me. So I wouldn't like it. Whoops. James. Once people are no longer ashamed of being racist, will widespread violence ensure? I mean, maybe we could see racist violence ensuing. I still think it's just a minority of people who are willing, who are unashamed of racism and of their racism and would be willing to engage in violence. But I certainly think it's possible. I don't think it would be widespread, though, because I don't think it's widespread. I don't think it's that widespread, this lack of shame in racism. Yet, maybe in the future it will be. I don't know. All right, James, how many centuries do you have to repeat coercive societies to discover they do not work? Well, what do you mean they do not work? If the purpose is coercion, they work fine. So, you know, it's work by what standard? Work by what measure? And that's the problem. The problem is we don't have the right measure. If the measure is human flourishing, sure. But what we have to do is convince people of that is the right measure. How long it will take, I do not know. Hopefully not centuries, hopefully decades. Michael, do geniuses have a hard time registering that other people are not geniuses? Seemed like Rand had that issue. I think so. I think so, particularly geniuses like Rand, who are generalists. I think an Einstein kind of gets it because nobody else can do the math. But for Rand, her genius was in understanding the world around all of us, accessible to all of us. And I think she had a hard time understanding that other people just didn't have it, couldn't do what she did. Arthur says, do you think you're a somebody? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Am I a somebody? A celebrity? I'm what my wife calls a mini celebrity. Sometimes when people come up to me at airports and say, hey, you're Yaron Brook, I watch your videos on YouTube, I think, oh, I'm a mini celebrity. But I don't know what a somebody is. I'm who I am. I am me. Any tips? This is Daniel. Any tips for first time in Florence? Day trips are welcome to 6.5 days. Yeah, I mean you're gonna be 6.5 days. Every day you can find stuff to do in Florence that'll be really amazing. Day trips out of Florence. I wouldn't do that on your first trip to Florence. There's just so much to see. Go up and see the view from Michelangelo's Plaza, where there's a copy of the David. It's up on a hill overlooking Florence. The view there's amazing. Go at sunset. That way you'll see the view. Sunset in Florence has this amazing light. You know, and you know, it's a golden light, and the city is beautiful at sunset there. There's a lot of people, so expect large crowds, but it's worth it. And then stay to see Florence. So you'll see Florence in the day, at sunset, and then at night, it's really beautiful. Go to the Accademia, go to the Uffizi, do the tunnel from the Uffizi to the I forget the palace that you go to. The palace that you go to has a number of museums. There's a museum they called the Modern Art Museum. That is not modern art in the sense of the 20th century art. It's modern art in the sense that it's post-Renaissance. And it has some beautiful, amazing stuff in it, including paintings by Raphael, who is from the Renaissance. So definitely go to what's called the Modern Art Museum in Florence. It's at the museum that is connected. It's at the Medici. It's a Medici Palace. There's just a lot of museums. Try to check them all out. There's a museum, God, which I cannot remember its name now, but it has Michelangelo's Bacchus, and it like has 3 Michelangelos. It has Raphael's David. You definitely should see Raphael's David. So that's a museum. Go inside the Palazzo Vecchio, inside the palace there. There's some amazing and interesting sculptures and paintings, and just the hall there is stunning. There's a place where Michelangelo designed the staircase, which is definitely worth going to see, the architecture. I said the Accademia, where you can see the David. You might want to go there twice. There's so many churches that are just worth visiting to see the art. And then there's one church where you'll find the grave of Michelangelo, of Galileo, of just a bunch of famous Italian contributors to the Renaissance and more. You know, I think Fermi is there, the scientist. So, and I forget the name of the church. The Croce, I think, maybe Croce. The churches. There's a church. Yeah, so just visit churches. Spend a day just walking through the churches. So there's just 6.5 days will go like that in Florence. Harper Campbell. People say they hate billionaires, but more billionaires exist ever. People say they hate socialism, but Social Security and welfare only grow. We're a very bipolar population. Well, I mean, people hate billionaires. That doesn't prevent them from being created. The day will come where we'll guillotine billionaires, and then their numbers will grow smaller. We haven't got to that level of hatred yet, but we're heading in that direction, it seems to me. Rue Downs, putting military strategy aside, can you explain why dropping nukes would be justified in this war? I'm not saying we should, but if a weapon helps any war effort, it should be considered. Yeah, definitely considered. It would shorten the war. It would dramatically, just like it did in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, shock the Iranian regime into possibility of surrender. Now, it might not have that effect, or alternatively, use a tactical nuke to destroy the tunnel systems. Maybe a nuke could penetrate the granite and actually destroy the missile bases and the tunnels, and maybe nuke the nuclear, the enriched uranium. So those are the kind of uses one would consider. for a nuclear bomb, probably a tactical nuke rather than a big hydrogen bomb. But still, those are the kind of things that you would think about and consider. What would be the cost? Radiation, loss of life, versus what are the benefits? Maybe shortening the war, maybe not. It's hard to tell. But certainly destroying their missile capabilities much faster, much more effectively, and permanently, potentially. Harper Campbell, have intellectuals successfully turned incompetence into a virtue? Is the rise of nationalism and toxic masculinity a flawed way of pushing back against it? Yes, they've turned incompetence into a virtue, but a lot of things they've done badly, and certainly they undermine rationality, undermine the mind, and undermine masculinity in any kind of form. And the rise of nationalism and toxic masculinity is indeed a flawed way of pushing back against merit, what they call meritocracy, a merit-based society, a society based on ability. So what they're really undermining is ability, and nationalism and toxic masculinity are definitely a pushback against it, a dramatically flawed pushback against it, but a pushback against it. Not Chavich, is Tucker Carlson's end goal a second Holocaust, or to have Jews removed from America, or just more Qatar money to continue fund his lavish lifestyle? I think it's probably the more Qatar money, or maybe it's just, I don't think he thinks that far. I don't think he thinks. I think he's just doing it. He believes it. I think it's not just Qatar. I think he believes it. He's just filled with hate, but I don't think he imagines a second Holocaust. He would certainly deny that was his motivation. I don't think he believes that Jews should be removed from America. He can't bring himself to think that. I think he would then contemplate his own evil, which is too hard for him to do. I think he just spouts ideas without thinking about what they actually mean and what they actually imply. In his own mind, he's just asking questions. He's evading, but I don't think he holds it in consciousness. Kabutaka, something like that. Why are you pro-EU? I'm pro-EU because the idea of a large territory that has free movements of people and a free movement of capital and free movement of goods is a spectacularly good idea. And the bigger that territory is, the better. And the EU has taken a bunch of countries that have generally, in a general sense, a very similar culture, and basically allowing people to move any way they want within their territory. I wish there was more of that. And integrate economically. And again, I wish there was more of that. Unfortunately, because it's not a federal system, there's not enough integration. But I think that we're all served economically, and from the perspective of freedom and liberty, when we can travel freely, trade freely, move our money freely, share a common currency, so that everything is denominated in the same approximate way. There's massive benefits for you to be able to travel into Sweden and go to Denmark or go to Paris or go to Madrid and not have passports and not have visas and be able to use the money you use. Now in Norway, it's not the case because you have your own currency, but if you had the euro, use the same money in Norway as you would in Paris, and understand exactly what you're paying for and exactly how much it costs, and be able to do business across these borders freely and effortlessly. I think it's a great idea. Now it's being perverted by statism, by too much regulations, too many controls coming down from Brussels, too much bureaucracy. But that's a perversion of a good idea. The EU fundamentally is a good idea. What you need to do is fight for the good in it. I think Brexit was a massive mistake. You're seeing that Britain is struggling post-Brexit. And they're struggling because they've lost the free flow of trade and free flow of capital, and even the free flow of people. They're much more reliant now on Muslims coming to England instead of Poles and Ukrainians coming to England, which would have been much less traumatic for the Brits. Not your average algorithm. In New York, no one is nice until you get to know them. In LA, everyone is nice until you get to know them. There is a certain truth to that. Okay, Fed rate. Would it be better to summarize evil that evil cannot win? Evil people cannot find happiness, but evil can make sure that you lose too. Yes, in the short run, ultimately, evil loses. It's not just that it can't win, good wins. But in the short to medium term, it can make you lose. Yeah. But it can never win. It can never flourish. It can never be successful. Lincoln learned about a new upstart college called Reliance College, started in 2026, classically liberal and very Ayn Rand inspired. I signed up for their week-long summer seminar. I'll make sure to inform you if it's fair to Rand. Is this like in Chicago? I'm curious where this is and who is involved. Lincoln. 1. Results from fertility in 2025 got released recently. It's lowering due to less teen pregnancy and early 20s and rising among women in their 30s. I'm not surprised. And 30s and 40s. Most of all whom earn six figures and have college degrees, destroying the notion that ambitious older women are why nobody has kids. Yes. And by the way, in America, it seems like in recent times, wealthy people are having more kids than poor people. So the notion has always been that wealth is what causes people to have fewer kids. And that's just not the case. Wealth actually makes it more economic to have fewer kids. So yes, a lot of myths about fertility and about kids and about the relationship between wealth and kids and about older women having more kids, younger women having fewer kids. And the primary reason for that is younger women have lots of opportunities to do other things. And at some point, particularly if they've been successful and they have money, either as a family or as women, they tend to have children. And as people get wealthier, they have more children. So the solution to the global fertility crisis is to get much, much richer. And that's what freedom would do. Not your average algorithm. Thoughts on Craig Biddle's debate with Peter Boghossian on free will and objectivism. I have no comment because I have not seen it. So can't comment on stuff I haven't seen. And I probably won't see it. I'm not that interested in watching Craig Biddle. All right. Reliance is in Chicago. Yeah, I mean, I think I know the people involved. Let me know what you think. I'd be surprised if it was impressive, but I don't know. I haven't looked into it too much. All right, guys. I know that it's been a project in the works for a very long time. Yeah. All right. The more time passes, the more different people associated or influenced by Ayn Rand will do all kinds of projects, some good, some bad, some mediocre, lots mediocre. And you'll all have to figure it out and evaluate what's good, what's not. And each person will have to make their own judgment about these things. But I think there's no way to stop it from there being lots of these different projects and different things going on. The Institute it will not, cannot, and has no intention of controlling them all. All right, guys, I am going to sleep. It is 11:30 at night. I have a flight tomorrow to Porto to the Objectivists conference there. Wouldn't want to miss that. I will see you all. I'm not sure when, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. Maybe on the weekend. Certainly not Monday because I'm flying all day Monday, but then Tuesday we'll start up more of a regular schedule. And then when I get to Austin, we're teaching at the University of Austin, we'll see what my schedule is there and how many shows I'll be able to do and at what frequency. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all the super chatters. You guys were generous today. I appreciate that. And I will see you all whenever, hopefully, maybe tomorrow, maybe on the weekend. If not, certainly on Tuesday. Bye, everybody.